All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're breaking down one of the biggest trends in the wellness world, hydrogen-rich water. You've probably seen it popping up everywhere. So, is this the future of how we hydrate, or is it just really good marketing? Let's dig into what the science actually says. I mean, the claims are huge, right? It's being pushed as a total game changer for athletes and anyone serious about their health, promising way better performance and faster recovery. But you have to ask, do those promises actually hold up under scrutiny? Okay, to really understand what's going on, we need to start with the basics. It all comes down to the star of the show, this one tiny molecule. We're talking about molecular hydrogen, or H2. And get this, it's the smallest molecule in the entire universe. Now, that's a pretty big deal, because it means it can get just about anywhere in our bodies, slipping right through cell membranes with ease. And the big claim is that once it's inside, it acts as a very powerful and very special kind of antioxidant. So here's the core theory. H2 is supposedly a selective antioxidant, and that word selective is key. The idea is that it only goes after and neutralizes the really nasty, damaging free radicals, the ones tied to inflammation and cell damage, while, and this is important, leaving the beneficial free radicals alone to do their jobs. On top of that, it's supposed to fight fatigue. So that's the theory, a tiny molecule with a very targeted mission. But does it actually work when the rubber meets the road? Let's look at the evidence, and we'll start with one of its biggest claims, boosting athletic performance. To figure this out, scientists at Palladic University set up a seriously rigorous experiment. They took 12 trained men and had them go through a really tough resistance workout on 2 different days. One time they drank the hydrogen-rich water, the other time a placebo. And they used a crossover design, which is kind of the gold standard because every person is compared against themselves, making the results super reliable. So the million-dollar question, after all that heavy lifting and careful science, what happened? Well, the results were pretty interesting. They found some specific benefits, especially for things like recovery and muscle endurance. Now, it wasn't a magic bullet for everything, but it was clear something significant was happening. First thing they found, a big difference in lactate. That's the stuff that makes your muscles burn and feel fatigue during a hard workout. Well, the group drinking the hydrogen water had way lower levels of lactate in their blood afterward, dropping down to 5.1 compared to 6.3 for the placebo group. That's a real measurable difference. And that difference wasn't just a number on a lab report, it was something the athletes could actually feel. A full day after the workout, the guys who drank the hydrogen water said they felt 37% less muscle soreness. 37%. I mean, anyone who's ever overdone it on leg day knows what a massive difference that would make. So what happens when you have less fatigue and less soreness? You get better performance. And that's exactly what they saw. During the final, most grueling part of the workout, the lunge exercise, the athletes on the hydrogen water were up to 8% faster. That's a pretty clear sign that their muscle endurance was holding up better. But, and this is a really crucial point, this was not some all-around performance drug. While it clearly helped with endurance and soreness, it did absolutely nothing for explosive power, like their vertical jump height. It also didn't change the main blood markers for muscle damage, and it didn't even make the workout feel any easier while they were doing it. So very specific effects. So okay, we're seeing a very specific pattern of benefits in the gym. But what about for our overall health? Let's switch gears now and shift from the weight room to metabolic health, which is another area where big claims are being made. For this, we're going to look at a meta-analysis, and this is a really powerful research tool. Instead of relying on just one study, it pulls together the data from a bunch of them, in this case, 8 different clinical trials. This gives us a much more robust, big-picture look at the overall effects. Now, this chart looks complicated, but the takeaway is pretty simple. Each of those little squares is one study. But the important part is that diamond at the bottom. That's the combined result of all 8 studies. And because that diamond is clearly to the left of the center no effect line, it tells us that, overall, hydrogen-rich water led to a small but statistically significant decrease in triglycerides. But just like we saw in the athletic study, the effect was highly specific. When the researchers looked at other important things like total cholesterol, the bad LDL cholesterol, or the good HDL cholesterol, there was no significant change. The benefit was really zeroed in specifically on triglycerides. So after we've looked at the data from the gym and from these clinical trials, what's the final verdict? Is hydrogen-rich water something you should pay attention to? This table really sums it all up pretty neatly. For athletic performance, yeah, we see some clear benefits for endurance and feeling less sore after a workout. For metabolic health, there's that targeted positive effect on triglycerides. But in both cases, it is clearly not a silver bullet. It had no real impact on other major things like explosive power or your overall cholesterol profile. Even the researchers from the athletic study came to a very measured conclusion. They said it shows promise as a beneficial hydration strategy specifically for athletes doing resistance training. The takeaway is that it's not a miracle cure, but the science does show that for certain specific uses, there's real promise. So at the end of the day, the science seems to be telling us that hydrogen-rich water is not some cure-all health elixir. It's probably better to think of it more like a specialized tool. It might offer some very specific, targeted benefits in certain situations, like helping you feel less sore after the gym or giving you a modest leg up with your triglyceride levels. And this leaves us with a really fascinating question. Is hydrogen-rich water just a niche tool for certain athletes and people watching their triglycerides? Or are we just at the very beginning of understanding what this tiny molecule can really do? The science shows there's a real, tangible effect. Even if it is specific, it proves there's more to H2 than meets the eye. The only question now is, what are we going to discover next?